Video's not playing. There we go. Yes, guys, I'm Si. This is Cardiff City World, but this is your Cymru Am Byth Podcast, the ultimate guide to Welsh football, as we talk nothing but the Welsh national team during the international breaks. And I'm very excited to get back into it. It feels like not long ago we were doing it, and then another international break has come. And we have the pleasure that we're recording a Christmas special for you guys on Monday, which is going to be fun. We should have at least one special guest. I'm hoping to have a little surprise one for Harry as well. But as I mentioned there, I'm joined as ever by my co-host with the most. You will find him at Harry Trades YouTube or YT on Twitter, but you'll find his two YouTube channels. You've got Harry on Wales and Harry Trades as well. Please do check them out. The links for those are in the description. But most of all, welcome him back to the channel. And it's good to see you, mate. How are you?
Yeah, wicked to see you, mate. I'm doing well, thank you. Buzzing to get back with you. And yeah, like you said, I don't know, it feels like a while since we've obviously done the last pod. So yeah, normally in what I kind of do in my fantasy football stuff, like international breaks are something to kind of not look forward to. But for me, it's a bit of a blessing, obviously, being Welsh and, enjoying the ride that we're on, I guess, as a country and as a nation. So yeah, buzzing to chat with you, mate. And yeah, how are you doing, most importantly?
Yeah, good, mate. Good, busy. I've got a few things at the moment in the pipeline, and filming some Christmas content and stuff to give some of the lovely people at Cardiff City World some days off over Christmas. But yeah, I've got a few little things that I'm excited about, which I can't talk about at the moment. But bit of a little rebrand of it. Ace, well, not a rebrand, but some new stuff coming to Ace Podcast Nation, because I kind of neglected it a little bit, where I've been doing launch Cardiff City World, obviously, which is 7 days a week of content. It takes up a lot of time. So really, it's been predominantly just the Rhodri gigs on Football Show on a Thursday on there. So got some stuff coming, got some new shows, new content.
Stay tuned.
And it's exciting times, mate. Just got to keep rolling with it and keep doing different stuff. Got myself a new Weekend Defender Wales top as well, which is always happy. It's a white one as well. I don't wear like a lot of white t-shirts, so there we go. But mate, it's Craig Bellamys. Like, he's changed the outlook of Welsh fans, I think, because it does feel like all Welsh fans, or predominantly the majority of Welsh fans, are looking forward to these international breaks, and they feel confident. Like that Turkey game, on Saturday is a very difficult game. We'll have a tactical preview out tomorrow night, but obviously me and you will preview it a little bit this evening as well. But it does feel like, even with important players out, there's like that breath of fresh air that's there, and you're like, oh, there's a couple of youngsters have been added who are quite exciting, and you feel like Craig Bellamys will have a plan on Saturday. Whether it works or not, but you feel like he will have a tactical plan that may differ to what we've seen in the first few games. Do you feel like that, or is it just me alone? My optimism.
No, man. I'm with you on the optimism. I think, regardless of, like you said, there's a few players not able to make it. I think Kiefer Moore was one that dropped out, wasn't he?
Wes,
as far as big names go. Wes did as well, didn't he? So, I think if it wasn't at home, then I'd be a bit, the first game, obviously, I'd be a bit less worrisome that, we don't have big Chief Keef with us. But yeah, I think like you said, mate, you can't really go against what he's done so far in the 4 games he's been in charge, I think. And, despite us not having I wouldn't say we haven't had a tough challenge, but this is the toughest, isn't it? Let's be real. Away to Turkey, like, no Kiefer Moore is obviously, something that we can't. The issue is we can't replicate that. I know you could argue Ruben Colwell comes in, but they're different players, despite maybe occupying similar positions on the field, right? Let's say if you called Ruben,
Ruben's 9.5 or whatever as well. But he might,
of course, but he's not going to play there for Wales, do you know what I mean?
No.
Well, he might, but not away anyway.
Just to sort of throw a spanner in the works straight away and interrupt you, I didn't think Ruben Colwell was going to get any game time. But then when I looked at the players who were out, and I looked at the way we played against Turkey in the home game, where we played with a false 9, and it caused them a lot of issues with players dropping into spaces and running in behind in the wide areas. And then I suddenly thought, well, do you know what? Do you know who would be really good in a false nine? It's probably Ruben Colwell, because he's not your stereotypical number 10. He's a big boy. He's got a really good first touch. He can hold the ball up. He drops into those awkward spaces, and he's very good at linking up the play. So I wonder whether that might come into it. I don't think he'll go with it. I get the feeling that he's not quite sold on Ruben yet. I think he thinks he needs to work on a few things. And look, he's not wrong. He's a young player. He's not the finished article. Otherwise, he'd have been snapped up by a Premier League team. But it is interesting, because another interesting one for me, Charlie Crew coming in, is really interesting. But he is one of the most exciting young players in that sort of 21s. To see him come in, knowing that we've got a couple of midfielders out, I wonder whether he gets some game time over the couple of games, because otherwise, what's the point in bringing him in? So, Robert Page before used to pick, for instance, Ruben Colwell and wouldn't give him a minute, and you felt like it was just a waste. Why not just leave him in the 21s? So I'm interested in how Craig Bellamy handles that, because I'm sure there's one side of him excited, Charlie Crew, let's chuck him in. But away to Turkey is difficult, to say the least. Where do you see, just initial sort of overall thoughts on the team for that Turkey game? What sort of system or tactics or formation players? How do you see it? Or what do you think the options are? Because obviously Daniel James coming back in is also a big bonus.
Yeah, he throws a massive spanner, doesn't he, in the works, Daniel James? Because he's been playing for Leeds. He scored a couple of goals. I think he's had a couple of goals and assists in the last few. He's playing regularly, and that proves a massive threat to Sorba Thomas's minutes now, doesn't it? Let's be real. I know Sorba's been class for us, and he's come back into the fold, and he's deserved it, and whatever. But yeah, we're almost not cursed, but a positive curse in that sense. In those specific wing positions, we've got so much depth, but we're kind of just. Like I said, after Kiefer Moore, we don't really have. I know we've got Mark Harris, but he's a different profile to Kiefer. And I'm not saying Mark couldn't go and do a job away to Turkey, because I think he probably could. But I'd be very shocked if he played. I love the thought of what you said then with the false nine thing and replicating what we did at home. But don't you think Turkey are going to be a bit more switched on now? There's no way they're going to get we're going to get away with carbon copy type of tactics like we did in our first home game. I think the shock factor played into that one, and not saying Bellamy won't be able to come up with anything else, but I'd be very shocked if he. Oh, well, obviously we don't have Ramsey, so we can't do the exact same thing. But I'd be very shocked if we did do. We played 4-3-3 against them last game. This is according to SofaScore. Can't remember exactly. I think it kind of did look that way, didn't it, on the field as well? Kind of, yeah, like a false nine Rambo. I'd be shocked if he didn't play 5 at the back or 3 at the back, however you want to look at it, against Turkey. And then remember we did that the Connor Roberts, Nico Williams thing at one point, where you had Nico right mid, a waiter, was it Montenegro maybe?
Yeah, it was
he's going to do something.
He's one type thing, yeah.
He's going to do something rather not negative, because we do have to respect them. They are flying as well. Let's be real. Big miss for them, mind. I know we, going on to them a little bit, but Ferdi Kadioglu, Brighton lad, who's been doing really well for Brighton, obviously. He's been ruled out with a toe injury or whatever. He's out for a few months. So he didn't play when we played them at home. He's not playing again when we play them away, which is obviously good. They've still got Arda Gulas. They got a lad, their main player. I don't know how to pronounce his second name that well, but it's Karim Ataroglu or something. Little tricky winger. He's basically he's flying for Benfica. He was at Galatasaray. They let him go. He's absolutely flying. They've obviously got Hakan Çalhanoğlu, coach who plays for Benfica. So we know they've got good players. We played them at home, but if everyone's fit and firing for them, it's going to be a big challenge that I do worry for us. Even though we have been not impeccable so far, but we have managed to just weather every storm that's come our way. Is this a step too far? I don't want to be too negative and say but I am I'm not going into this thinking we're guaranteed to not lose this game, no matter what happens tactically. Oh, I'd bite your hand off for a point. Bite your hand off for a point all day long. I'm not a betting man, but I would never be betting us or the draw here. being honest, I just think it's a tough place to. So why shouldn't we be surprised against that? Do you know what I mean? Like he could come up with something inventive where we go, Dan James is on one wing, we got Harry Wilson coming into pocket. What if he plays Harry Wilson as a false nine, and Wilson's wrapping balls in behind for Dan James and Sorba Thomas to get on the end of? It could there's going to be something that we. Brennan as well, of course. Yeah, we've got so many pacey players now between Sorba, Brennan, and Dan James. You've got to have 2 or 3 of them on the pitch at all times, haven't you? Stretching both sides of the field, because otherwise you're giving yourself a tough day of the office, especially away from home. So I honestly couldn't give you the 11. I'm quite like in the dark about it, to be honest.
Yeah, I was just having a little play around on like the team selector on BBC there, and I think I agree with you. I think we'll go like that 3-4-2 sort of 1 type thing, because you can sit back into like a 5 and a 2 or a 5 and a 3 quite easily when you lose possession. I think he goes with Darlow in goal, and this is just off the top of my head really, but I think it'll be Meepham, Cabango, and Davis at the back, and then Nico Williams will be one wing back. I think he'll stick with Sorba Thomas. I think Sorba Thomas showed that he'll work hard in the defensive side, but also gives you a bit going forward. I think, but if he wanted to be a bit more defensive, obviously, like Connor Roberts or De Silva can slot in there. I think Sheenan absolutely deserves to start again alongside Jordan James. And then I think we might see Brennan Johnson as the sort of central striker with a kind of like Harry Wilson and Daniel James in the 10s, with Harry Wilson looking to drop in, and obviously Daniel James will look more to be a bit more dynamic and running behind. But then with Brennan Johnson's pace as well, you end up with like Harry Wilson behind the 2 of them sort of thing. But then out of possession, it just becomes like a 5-3-2 almost. And, Daniel James and Harry Wilson will just drop into that midfield, create a bit of a box and just make it very difficult. They'll try and we will, I would imagine, try to force them out wide and stop the crosses rather than letting them play through the middle of us. But I think Sheenan 100% deserves to start. I thought his performance was excellent. Martin in the chat there just said the same thing. He deserves the chance to start. But I also think Mark Harris would be unlucky not to retain his place in the side. Thought he did a really good job up front in the last game. Like, was it the last game or the game before it? Like when he played, he did really well.
At home, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and he worked hard. But ultimately, at Turkey, I think, because we've got a pretty young side, it's such a nasty place to go. Like, I think he will want a little bit of experience in there, in your Ben Davis, your Meepham, Jordan James, although he's young, is pretty experienced. Nico Williams, although he's young, is exceptionally experienced. Daniel James is experienced. Harry Wilson's experienced. And Brennan Johnson, again, young, but has played a lot of games. I don't think Cullen starts. I don't even... Did he drop out injured or not? I'm going to have to check that. Because I got a feeling he might have. I'll double check that. But what do you think of that sort of side that I just created while you were speaking? Do you think something like that might work, or do you think he goes a more traditional route with an all-out 5 or an all-out, 4-3-3? Because he's had a slightly different plan for every game, which you should have. If you're a good manager, you plan for the opposition, don't you? Especially good opposition.
100%. I'm just looking at what Turkey did last couples. They're kind of married to a 4-2-3-1. So you've got like flat back 4, Hakan, Çalhanoğlu captain, one of the CDMs alongside Koçu. Both can't really run, so you'd like to think, I'm not saying Sheehan's quick, but at least Jordan James would be able to get in and be, in and around them. Like he athletically could give them a bit of a hard time, despite them probably wanting to dominate possession. I can't imagine. I know we've been great at dominating possession recently. I don't think we dominate the game here, as in like after the game's done, I'd be shocked if we have more than 50% possession. I don't think we'll get battered, but I think it'll be like more 55-45 to them, maybe even 60-40. Just with them being at home and us being the away side, I think Bellamy would be, quite okay with that. I think if we have got players on the break that can do a bit, and then it's a case of keeping Ardagula quiet. So again, we're looking at the issue is we don't want, because they've got a middle 3. We can't allow them to overload us in midfield because they will keep the ball for fun. Ardagula, obviously at Real Madrid, I know he didn't play all the time, but we've seen him score. See that wonder goal he scored against us, like last year or whatever? He just wrapped in the top corner, didn't he? He's got serious quality, which we can't let him have space, basically. He's going to get it anyway because he is that good. He drops deep. I just don't know how we can get away with not having 3 in midfield, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
whether that means Wilson comes and does a bit of a job on one of the seats. Well, I don't think you can go Joe Allen and Sheehan because I don't think they can run. You need one of them at least to be able to run. Not saying Joe Allen can't run, but I think Jordan James, obviously Ampadu would have been ideal. Like Jordan James, Ampadu, and maybe honestly, I think we're going to see 3 midfielders, but the issue is we don't have them. So it's either Harry Wilson drops really deep, do you know what I mean? And maybe does a lot of the defensive work on one of those 8s or 6s, whether that's Kalanoglu or Kochu. We just don't have the numbers side, do we? Like we don't have Ampadu. We've brought in Charlie Crew. There's no way he starts Charlie Crew, unfortunately. I'd love to see him play. He might play at home, but he ain't going to play. So, what are you left with? You're left with Sheehan, who has been exceptional. I give him that. Jordan James. Who else can we realistically play in midfield? And by midfield, I mean centre midfield, ideally.
So,
because I don't know.
I was just looking then. If we was to sort of match them up, say, and go like a 4-2-3-1 or maybe a 4-3-2-1 or something like that. Maybe you could drop in like a Charlie Savage. You got Brooks.
I was thinking that, mate.
Effectively, he's either got to go with the experience of Joe Allen. If you wanted 3 central midfielders, and if you just assume that Sheehan and Jordan James are going to start, if you want to add one more central midfielder, like out-and-out central midfielder, it's got to be either the youngsters in Charlie Crew or Charlie Savage, or the experience of Joe Allen, because the others are your Ruben Colwells, David Brooks, a bit more attack-minded, more like 10s, really. And then, obviously, you've got your Harry Wilson.
Exactly.
And people like that. So it does become a little bit problematic. But then I do think, like, in, Harry Wilson, David Brooks, they do work hard. So out of possession, if you sort of ask them to drop right back into the midfield, I do think they can do that. So if you had sort of James and Sheehan with Wilson just in front, and then just went for like a normal 4-2-3-1 with James on one wing,
Brennan on the other,
Thomas on the other, maybe, and then
Brennan up front.
Yeah, you've got Brennan Johnson, you've got Mark Harris, you've got Cullen. I know, Cullen did a decent job. I didn't think he was great on the ball.
Okay, didn't he? Yeah.
But I thought he did a good job at putting himself about, and today, right, just looking at that now, I've gone James and Sheehan, Wilson in the 10 who sort of drops in, and then on the wings I've got Daniel James, David Brooks with Brennan Johnson as your sort of central striker. And with the injuries, mate, we're still, leaving out Sorba Thomas, probably doesn't deserve to lose his place. Mark Harris, you got the youngsters then in Colwell, Savage, Crew. You're also leaving out Cullen, Harris, Kumas, Colwell. So there's a lot of experience. I think if we go back 4, who do you think? Do you think he would go Meepham or Roden? And then I'm assuming Ben Davis will play centre back and then Nico will play left back. But then I don't think he fancies Connor Roberts too much at the moment. So
I know.
Like, do you give Jay De Silva to go on one side, or do you put Nico on the right and Davis out to the left?
And Davis left back.
I always feel like Roden and Meepham, I don't like him as a pair, if I'm honest. And I thought Kabanga did well as well, mate. So we still got a little bit of depth.
It's tough, isn't it? We do, don't we? We have a worrying amount of decent depth at the back, man. Honestly, if you ask me to pick a 4, Nico has to be in there somewhere. There's no way Nico Williams doesn't play. Whether that's right back, like you said, or centre back, or left back.
And Davis as well.
Yeah, maybe. Has he been playing? Because we know Bellamy likes players who are playing, and I know we're not blessed with many of them. Let me see if he's been playing recently on turn. He's had a couple of appearances. He came off the bench against Leeds, Middlesbrough, but no, he's been on the bench last 3 games. He can't get into the side. They're winning. Well, they've won literally last 3. So I'd be shocked if he played him, but you just never know. Mate, I don't know, because he hasn't. Mepham hasn't had a minute under him, have he? By the way,
That's a lot of rustiness, isn't it?
It is, but he's playing every game for Sunderland. Like every single game, 90 minutes every game. So,
right, sorry, I thought you meant the other way around, like he hasn't had a minute for his club side. No, so...
Sorry, no, yeah. I don't know, I think it's harsh what he's done to Mepham so far. Like, first camp, fair enough, because he wasn't playing for Sunderland at the time. The deal just went through. But, mate, he's been playing every game. He didn't get a minute against Iceland, a minute against Montenegro, and he did come off the bench against Montenegro away from home, but at home he didn't. So he has played under him, I guess, so far. But, yeah, it looks like he likes Cabango more than him, which I'm not against, but...
No, me neither.
I don't know.
I really like Cabango.
It's a bit harsh. Yeah, Cabango's class, especially away from home. I like it away from home.
What Cabango does, one of the reasons I'm not a massive fan of Mepham and Rodham together is the lack of pace. And then if you've got Ben Davies at left back as well, that's 3 of the 4 defenders who've got very little pace. Quick. So Nico Williams ain't going to be able to get right across and cover all of them.
I know.
So I think if you're going to go with Davies at left back,
no chance.
You probably have to get Cabango in there for that pace. So say Cabango, Rodham, Nico on the right, Davis left, and then I've got Jordan James and Sheenan. But I mean, Martin's just made a really good point there. He said you could see Cullen and Wilson as like a dual 10 because they can then drop into the midfield and do a job on the holding midfielders. Both will work hard, particularly Cullen will really put himself around. But I wonder whether to do that, you've got to go 3 at the back to have dual 10s because otherwise you're so narrow.
Yeah.
And I just don't see a world where Brennan Johnson and Daniel James don't start for me. Like, I just think away from home, you need their pace. But Daniel James could possibly play one side wing back as well, I think. I think he's got the work to I think he's done it before as well. But
he did, didn't he? Came off the bench, didn't he? Against Poland. Yeah, so, I don't know. I think you ideally, I'm just saying, if we're not starting 2 of Sorba, Brennan, and Dan James, if they're all fit, we're doing something wrong. I think 2 have to be on. Like I'm already mentioned, 2 have to be playing for me at all times because, like you said, our back 4 ain't blessed with pace. Our pivots aren't blessed with pace. Wilson isn't blessed with pace. Like, we do need legs away from home more so than anywhere else, Never mind Turkey away. So, and to be honest, Turkey aren't even the quickest of sides. They're actually they're quite a slow side. But if we want to get in and around them and beyond them and into spaces, into channels and stuff and stretch them and weaken them, we need to utilize our pace. So, like you said, whether it's a back 5 with 2 really good wing backs, whether one's Nico, one's Sorba, or one's Dan James, I think we need balance. Like, I don't know if we did go back 5, if it would be Connor Robertson and Nico, because I know Nico, they're both fine, but they're probably as a 2 a bit too defensive, I would argue. I'd like to have Nico on one side, who is attacking, ultimately is a defender by trade. And then on the right, I'd love to see a Sorba or a Dan James instead of Connor Roberts, because I think Connor Roberts, for me, he's not having the best of times right now for Wales. He got kippered, didn't he, against the Icelandic lads for the goal where it was the own goal against Danny Ward. I've never been the biggest fan of Connor Roberts. He has got his traits and his attributes, don't get me wrong. He's a professional footballer, but I just think we could, away from home, I think we need a bit more going forward. I think we should, the best form of defence is attack at the end of the day. I know it's an old saying, but I think it probably does ring true here. We can punish them in certain areas, and I think we just need to trust in ourselves. Don't go too negative. Respect them, but really give a good account of ourselves, because they won't want to play against Dan James and Brennan Johnson. I'm telling you, they haven't got the legs to deal with it. They haven't.
No, and I think when you've got a very experienced but not too pacey side like Turkey, very well organised, well drilled, the 2 sort of double pivot will be very disciplined in holding that central area. And what we did in the first game, which they didn't like, was we dragged those centre backs out of position and created the spaces. So that's why I think, the more I think about it, I could actually see us going with Davis on the left-hand side of the defence, and then Cabango and Rodham as a 3, Daniel James on one side, Nico Williams on the other side, with James and Sheenan in the middle as a 4, then having Wilson and Cullen behind Brennan Johnson, So you effectively have like a 3-4-2-1. Cullen and Wilson will sit on those holding midfielders out of possession. In possession, then on the break, you've got Williams and James in the wide areas. You've got Brennan Johnson, and you've got Cullen and Wilson sort of dropping into spaces, dragging people out of position. And then because the Turks are so disciplined in the way they mark and the way they will do their individual jobs, that's when you can create those spaces for Daniel James, for Nico Williams in the wide areas. And then it's about the application and the quality of the crossing and passing. Can you get your head up and pull one back to the edge of the box instead of just blasting it across the box? Can you find a person, because we haven't got the biggest forward line in that system, Harry Wilson, Cullen quite short, Brennan Johnson's not massive. There's not a lot of height in the forward areas, so you've got to find a pass. And usually Nico's pretty good at that, like tailoring his delivery for it. Daniel James, maybe, I think the one criticism which people would throw at Daniel James is his final ball or his decision making.
End product.
Yeah, because there was a couple of games under Page where it felt like Daniel James would have a one-on-one like 3 or 4 times every game on the break, and he would just sort of freeze in front of the goal. But he's been in fantastic form at club level, and he is so quick that I think you can utilize him to great effect against this Turkish side.
100%. I think I'm in agreement with you. Probably 10 out of 11 there. I just don't know if I'm sold on the Cullen yet. I don't know if he warrants a position in this team away from home.
Yeah, and I could see David Brooks getting that. Sorry to interrupt you again, mate. I could see
that was the next name on my list.
He was excellent. David Brooks was, when he for an hour. How much has David Brooks played since the last international break?
Not many. I know he's had a couple of bench. He played in like the cups and that, I think, for Bournemouth, but I know he hasn't started a game. To be fair, he's come off the bench last 3. So to be honest, mate, he has had a couple of minutes, more than I actually.
Yeah, my thinking is, I think Bellas took him off, didn't he? About an hour in, I think it was, and he did good. He did good for that hour, but he just faded. And I just wonder whether will he be a bit further on in his fitness now, whereby you can get 70 minutes out of him, 80 minutes out of him. Because if you set that side up the way I just said, but you exchange Cullen out for David Brooks, then all of a sudden it looks real strong. It looks real tasty and creative on the counter-attack. And then you've got your Colwells, your Kumases, got some really Cullen, you've got some really good attacking players who will all work hard and put themselves about. And like Martin's just said there, Cullen is, he says Cullen's niggly, he'll get under their skin. And I think that's something to bear in mind as well. Like one of the things, I didn't think, as I said earlier, I didn't think he was particularly great on the ball. I thought he was a bit sloppy in places, but off the ball, you can't question his work rate and his application and he put himself about a few late little challenges, like leave a bit on, which you need that aggression. And away from home at Turkey, the fans, if we keep it at 0-0 for a while, their fans will get frustrated and it will become 100%. A bit hostile for them. So,
yeah,
I can see the logic in it.
All the pression's on them at the end of the day, innit? They're at home, they're in I know we're in good form, but they're equally in good form. I just don't know whether we're selling Sorba short in that discussion.
That's very true, mate.
Do you know what I mean? But he's obviously such a different profile to Cullen. I just worry that having Cullen and Wilson away from home, they're too similar. I just don't think we need both of them to do basically the same thing. They're both left-footed. They both basically do the same thing realistically. And I think just Wilson's a bit better, obviously a bit better. I just don't know if at home, I'll give you it 100%. I think we need a bit more pace, a bit more directness. And I would not be surprised if he somehow fitted in a Sorba into that, whether that's, like you said, going as a Wilson on a 1, and then you've got 2 of Brennan and Sorba playing as basically 2 wide forwards, or however it looks. I just think we need to give them as much trouble as possible. And I don't think that trouble comes from 2 of our 10s continuously dropping in. I think we need 2 players going up beyond every time, whether that's Brennan and Sorba, Dan James on the right. I think we need to give them multiple pace problems rather than a multiple like dropping into hole problems. I think Wilson can do that on his own fine. I just struggle to see Bellamy trusting both of them away. If he does, great. Like, I'm happy to watch it through. I just did you see that on a bit of an off topic? But did you see Sorba's interview with S4C?
No, I haven't yet. No.
You haven't seen it, have you? Is it Gwenan? I think it's Gwenan, the lady who does the S4C stuff. She's like the presenter or whatever. She went to Nantes and went to a park and like literally had a 1-to-1 with him, like, walking through France, and it was a really good, proper good insight, mate. Basically, like, he just admitted that like he had a stinking attitude, like no one can tell him any different, like it's his way or the highway. He literally said those words. He said it's Thomas's way or the highway. And obviously he fell out with Rob Page, but wasn't in the picture or whatever. And he basically said like he's had to completely change his attitude. He's got a therapist. He's really had to grow up since going out to France, and obviously Bellamy's, been trusting him in that. He's really hoping for like his Welsh moment. Like he had the offside goal. He was gutted because like he was like all the boys have had their Welsh moment, as far as getting a goal. He hasn't had his yet, and he feels like it's coming, which, I'm not in disagreement there. But I don't know. I just think not to like you want to just keep him happy, but he does seem the type that like if you now went and said, you know what, like not bombing you because Dan James is here, but you know what I mean. Like you come out of the picture a bit. I think you have to keep him on side. Not that he's like our best player or anything, but I do think he is a bit of an asset. And I don't know. I'd just be shocked if he didn't have some role to play from the start. I don't know. Maybe I'm being optimistic asking for Brennan, Dan James and Sorba to play, but I really think pace is the antidote to sort of getting out of them, mate, to be honest.
I wouldn't be surprised if Dan James, I said earlier, I think you've got to get him in. We have used Dan James as an impact sub before, and whilst he's in really good form at club level, but he does remind me a little bit of like Garnacho at United, where when he starts, not as effective, but when you bring him off the bench, he's almost impossible to stop because he's so direct, he's so fresh compared to the rest of the players on the pitch. And then if you kind of go with like that three at the back and you have Nico Williams and Sorba Thomas in the wing back areas, and you have James and Sheenan sort of sitting, but you could also then have Brooks just floating about a bit deeper maybe than Wilson, and then Wilson playing right off Brennan Johnson in the normal role he plays. So Brooks is almost like a number 8, but like hasn't quite got the defensive responsibilities where he's got to be actual box to box. So he's like the attacking part of a number 8 sort of thing, if you get me. So like he'll get in down the right and support Nico Williams, and he kind of did that role a little bit in the last game. I think he was more of a right winger, but like similar positions and similar attributes. It's difficult, isn't it? Because I don't think I agree with you on Sorba Thomas. I think I could see him staying in the side from the start. I can also see David Brooks retaining his place, but I can also see Josh Sheenan. I think Josh Sheenan deserves to keep his place with no Ampadu.
Definitely.
And then you're like, well, is he going to drop Brennan Johnson? Because then we don't have really a striker unless he goes with that false 9 again and Harry Wilson's the guy. But that seems, I don't know. Ramsey did it really well and probably should have had a goal or two, really. But then equally, Bellamy might come up with a completely different system and plan to all of the things we just talked about. So
100%.
It's interesting because he's very detail-orientated, Craig Bellamy. And he will have noticed, much like you did, that Turkey will be much more prepared for what we're going to try and do. Because just in the fact that we're very comfortable on the ball, I think they'll press us in certain areas. I don't think they'll target us. Like, I don't think they'll necessarily try and press, like, for instance, the centre-backs. I think they'll target the wing-backs, Nico Williams, Sorba Thomas, where they'll try and press there in 2s and 3s because they can do that without being like 3-4 players being played out of the game by a quick couple of passes, because you can kind of press the wing back but still keep your shape, sort of thing, if that makes sense. But I know when I spoke to Craig Bellamy before, like, he was very very positive about creating overloads all over the pitch, like bit by bit, and just creating overloads with your movement off the ball and giving options, and then doing it again and in the next phase up the pitch, and moving up the pitch, creating overloads, but then equally in defence, being +1 all the time. So it's going to be fascinating. I got to say, I agree with you though. I think we go with wing backs, and I think one will be a Nico Williams or a defender, and the other will be either Sorba Thomas or Daniel James, which is interesting again because I was supposed to. Well, I'm doing Rhodri Gig show tomorrow where he wants to talk about Manchester United's new manager. So I've done a bit of research on his tactics, and that's something that he implements. Is on one wing back is more of a full back, and the other wing back is normally a winger, and then the 2 10s who play behind aren't actually 2 10s. One's a traditional 10 and one's a winger. So it feels unbalanced because you naturally feel like in that system that you'd go for 2 out and out number 10s behind the striker. But actually what he does is strange because it feels unbalanced, but actually, I mean, it works and against certain opposition. And like you also said, Turkey very organised, very structured. So you need to find ways to disrupt that. And I expect Craig Bellamy to have a plan, mate. I really do. I've been very, very impressed that he talked about it, of course, but it's different talking about it and then implementing it. And I think he's implemented it in everything. Even when we've had periods or games where we haven't been as good, he's had a tactical plan and the players have clearly known what that plan is. We've never seen a game where, or under Bellamy so far, touch wood, we haven't seen a game yet where the players don't look like they know exactly what their role is and where they need to be at all times. Do you agree with that, mate, or not? 100%. Or am I just pro Bellamy?
Yeah, no, 100%. Oh, mate, no, I mean, I know it's not nice to compare managers. It feels like you're comparing ex-girlfriends and stuff, but you look at obviously the Page era, and unfortunately, you couldn't see an identity in us in over 2.5 years, probably, which is unfortunately a negative on what he was trying to implement, I think. And day one, we see Bellamy's stuff, really come into fruition in that Turkey game. So he's had months in the job now. Not saying there's pressure on him necessarily, but we know he'll come up with something. It's just right now because everything's so new and he's new to the team and the players are new to him. We're still not at level 10. If there's 1 to 10 levels, we're still not at level 10 Bellamy, coaching for them players. There's so much. Yeah, Bellamy ball hasn't fully loaded, is it? It just hasn't. It's not going to, and that's fine. We're happy with that. I think you ask any Welsh fan now that's watched the last 4 games, I think it'd be very hard for anyone to have an overall negative outlook on the 4 games. Impossible. We haven't lost a game. I know, we haven't won everyone, but Jesus, guys just walked in and managed to not lose the game as a Welsh manager for not being done before. He's doing something special. And that doesn't mean that if we lose on, Saturday, that things have gone, negative. And I wouldn't count that as that at all. I really wouldn't, because I'd fancy us to bounce back on the Tuesday. Yeah, it's going to take time, mate. And you still haven't had a whole full squad yet. No. Do you know what I mean? Until Rambo's back, until Ampadu's back. Do you know what I mean? He hasn't been blessed with the injuries and stuff so far. Oh, no. Massive.
So there's a couple of really interesting points I want to get your take on, really, because Martin sort of mentioned that he stole my thunder in the comments there. He said, we fade in the second half under Bellamy. The energy he requires is very hard to sustain with the players we have. However, is that the reason why we have Charlie Crew, I think Charlie Savage is in there as well, Ruben Colwell.
Yeah, you're right.
Kumas, Cullen, Harris, Broadhead. There's some young legs in there, right? Is that the reason why he's brought in Charlie Crew, who's someone who will look after the ball all day long whilst creating chances, working hard, keen to impress? He's young energetic and fit, because then maybe you do get an hour out of Joe Allen. Maybe you do get an hour, with Sorba Thomas Sorba Thomas. You might have an hour with Sheenan and Jordan James, David Brooks, but then you've got to bring Brooks off, and maybe you put Charlie Crew in there for a third central midfielder for the energy, and just let Jordan James and Sheenan sit. Do you put, Charlie Savage, the same thing. He looks after the ball all day. Or you can bring on Ruben Colwell to cause a bit of mayhem, maybe. Or you can bring in, even if Daniel James is on the bench. And that's the other thing I wanted to get a take on. So, first of all, the young players, but then secondly, and the second half thing. And then secondly, Daniel James hasn't played under Craig Bellamy yet. He's already said in public, in interviews, he's desperate to impress him. He is going to be so up for this game. It's unbelievable. Anyway, but the other players have had time to show Bellamy what they can do, apart from the young players. Daniel James is going to be bang up for it. And in fairness to him, he's pretty consistent for Wales. It is, like we said earlier, his final product is a bit suspect, but I think that's got better in the last 12 months for Leeds. So hopefully we'll see that with Wales. But what's your take on those kind of two things, Daniel James and obviously the young players in the second half?
I reckon you've definitely gone down an avenue there that I'm happy we're going to explore now, because I kind of disregarded it. But maybe this type of game, guys, where Bellamy wants to win in the last, or win it, but by win it I mean either keep it as a draw or win the game actually in the last 30. Because like you said, we do have legs on the bench. We have younger players keen to impress. As maybe he's James, maybe James doesn't walk in straight away. He comes on for 30, whatever, plays 90, on Tuesday. I reckon this game ideally is won by us late on, but then I do understand what Mark said in the chat. I can't see the chat, sorry, so I apologize if I've got that name wrong. But I can see it now. Wicked. I had to click on the comments. There we go. He's right. Yeah, we have faded. I would agree. Yeah, that is probably the biggest negative so far. And are we going to be able to just miraculously come up with a solution away to Turkey that combats it? Maybe not, but does the togetherness and the accumulated legs on the bench, make up for it? I'd hope so. But Bellamy's been a bit weird with his subs, hasn't he? He hasn't. Have we had a game yet where he's done all 5? I think he might have, but I don't think he does. He hasn't done it in every game yet. He hasn't utilised them all, I'm sure. I could be wrong on that, but I think he's been a
bit. A couple of odd ones,
a bit sort of hyped on his subs. Yeah, what was it? It was the Cullen, the Wes Burns one was the weird one against away to whoever it was. But Brennan apparently had a bit of a niggle or whatever. He took the yellow.
Yeah, no, it is what it is, isn't it? But
in Bellamy's football, what Martin's saying is true. So, maybe what I've said there about winning in the last 30 is going against what Bellamy's philosophy is, in that he's all about blowing you away in the first 45, isn't he, really? He wants to try and get a lead in the first half of the game, ideally. If that doesn't play out, then it's obviously got the second half. But like Martin said, we have flagged in the second half. So, that comes from our players not playing 90 minutes week in, week out, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Well, then, I put this to you, mate. I'm just looking at, if you look at the likely 11s, say, regardless of systems and stuff, when you look at the benches, or the bench that we'll be left with, it's quite an energetic bench as well. You've got Lewis Kumas, Liam Cullen, Broadhead, maybe David Brooks, depending on the system. Burns is out, obviously, and you've got Charlie Crew, Colwell, Savage, Joe Allen would be the outlier. Who else is there? Connor Roberts, maybe. Norrington Davis. I think Owen Beck is out, isn't he? So, but apart from Joe Allen and Connor Roberts, they are all pretty young. So
it'll be interesting, though. That's my issue.
Yeah, but you might have a choice.
Yeah,
because
you're right.
Outside of Joe Allen and Connor Roberts, they're all youngsters. So
agree.
Mark, he's played Mark Harris. I don't think he's played Kumas, or he gave him a debut, didn't he? And then hasn't played him since.
Yeah, it was away to Montenegro and he dragged him. Yeah, tied him down, played him away to Montenegro in the pouring rain, and then dragged him at half time.
But if we could get like level with like 20 minutes to go, when you bring on like a Kumas and Daniel James, for instance, they would cause mayhem, mate, against a tired Turkish side. And then if you put in like Charlie Crew, bit of energy in the middle, looks after the ball, same as Savage. Even Colwell, there's a false 9 in the last 20 minutes just to completely give Turkey something else to think about. He's the sort of player who just causes a bit of mayhem because he's so unorthodox.
Yeah, 100%, mate.
Those unorthodox players who can do something a bit out of nothing. Like, I think it was Martin or someone said in the comments, like, unfortunately, he won't trust Colwell away to Turkey. I think it depends on the situation because, if Harry Wilson gets injured, God forbid, he might not have a choice. He's going to have to
100%.
play someone. Yeah. But, and I, from what he said to me and from what he said since, I do think he believes in players who are playing, should be playing, and also players who are in form. And that's why I think we saw Cullen and Harris in the previous international break, because they're both playing, they were both in form. Well, Colwell's playing and he's back in form.
Yeah.
So
I know.
And I think there would have been eyebrows raised if he wasn't in the squad this time round. And I think that's the first time, certainly I've seen, where unanimously Welsh fans were saying he's got to be in the squad.
Oh, he's got to be in it. Yeah, yeah.
And I think I still don't think he'll play a lot of minutes. I think he might get 20 minutes against Iceland. But I can also see a scenario where he could be very useful away to Turkey, especially if we're starting to fade. We can kind of use him as that. I know he's not a number 9, but if he's in that false 9 position, you can link up off him and play off him. He's a big unit. And if you've got like a fresh Kumas and a fresh James in and around it, maybe that's an option. It is fascinating, mate, because largely a lot of these players are reserve players, really. If everyone's fit for Wales, some of these players probably don't get in at the moment because they're still progressing as young players. But we still can't really nail down who's going to play where and what, because they're all, you can see a benefit or you can see a way that Bellamy would utilise them. And I think that's fantastic from a Welsh point of view, that we have that versatility and we have that little bit of depth. And I'm super excited. I'm very excited. I've talked about it a lot recently. I got a video coming out actually next week, if anyone wants to watch it. On the young players coming through at Cardiff. I've got a couple of guys coming on with me who go and watch all the development games, like the 18s and the 21s, because there's a crop coming through at Cardiff and Swansea at the moment. We were playing in the Welsh squad, who are just sensational. Like the 18s and 19s, and you look at the 18s, mate, who played yesterday. Was it yesterday or the day before? And they won 1-0 in their first group game. And you've got Biancheri playing at United, absolutely tearing it up in their 18s, scores again. You've got Zach Giggs, who's just quietly interesting with a name like his, that he's quite quietly gone along his business, but he's playing real well. And that's an interesting one, because as soon as he plays regular first team football, which was not far off by the looks of it, because of his name and who his dad is, he's going to be, he's got a couple of caps for the under-19s, very highly rated, but at the moment he's not he's not playing that first team football, which is the next step, I guess. But Biancheri, I don't think, if you'd asked me about 6 weeks ago, I'd have said I would expect him to be in and around the United first team for like EFL Cup games next year. But they brought in this big lad from Arsenal. His name's Obi Martin. Have you seen him? He's 16 and he's like 6'4", massive. Wow. And he scored something like 92 goals last year for Arsenal in the under-18s. First game for United's under-18s, and he scored 3 or 4 in like 14 minutes. Because he's just so big, but he's very good. My point being, I wonder whether that might slow down Biancheri's progress towards the sort of first team squad, at there. But I we'll see when we.
Might go on
I
loan.
know.
Little
and I
Cardiff
think that would be beautiful, mate, to have him back. Like, it's unfortunate the way the system's set up at academy level that the big clubs can snap players up, like, you know. But Zach Giggs, but by the way, mate, it's not just like Giggs. I just picked him out because of his name. But that Wales under-19 team is, or under-18 team is very, very talented. The 23s, you know, the 23s are already coming up through into the first team. So it's exciting time for Welsh football. And I believe even if, you know, things go wrong in the Bellamys over the next 12 months, and when I say wrong, I just mean like we don't qualify or, you know, we lose a couple of games. I'm fully on board the Bellamy train for me now. I think he's shown enough and talked enough sense that if you let him build a project over 3 to 5 years at Welsh football, Wales football will be better for it when he leaves. That's my opinion.
100%. I think, like all these Nations League games, ultimately they're glorified friendlies at the end of the day. The main business is that, you know, in March, right? Like everything he's doing right now is all testing phase and beta stuff. You know, like we're all just gearing on for March, really.
Does it affect?
Of course, there is some
qualification, like who you get in the seeding and stuff, doesn't it?
I think there is some sort of there's definitely an incentive to do well in it, obviously, but I think we are able to, like we said, it's been so hard to actually get Bellamy's team right because he's always throwing spanners in the works, isn't he? Like he is always throwing a little wild card in there. Even the keepers, like he's rotating. We know he's rotating keepers because he wants to find a designated number one by March, which makes sense. At least he's come out and said that. But I mean, I'm excited. I think it's again two tough tests. Tougher, obviously, away from home to Turkey, and again, it's one of those questions. Are you biting? Am I biting your hand off for 4 points? Absolutely. Would I take 3 right now and just sort of let it, you know, just 1 win, 1 loss? 100%. I think I wouldn't be happy to lose away to Turkey, but I'm almost expecting it. It may be.
Well, here's the question, mate. Would you be shocked if we beat Turkey?
Yeah, I would. I honestly would be a little bit shocked, just in their form, because we aren't playing the Turkey that we played, you know, first game. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
if we were playing the exact same team, then you know what? I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't. But I know they're on a little bit of a better trajectory right now, and that does worry me. So I'd be massively shocked. Yeah, I would.
Interesting. That's good.
I really, really would.
So giving you optimism, but not quite that much optimism.
Mate, it's not down to him though, Si. I think we've got massive injuries, like we've been on about. You know, I think Ampadu is the obvious one, and not that we need to get into the injuries right now, but there is just big ones that are missing. We don't have a finalised 11. We don't even have a proper goalie. So, you know, I would be very shocked, if we did go and win, but I'd love to see it.
Yeah, mate,
I agree with Martin there. Yeah, he would be disappointed.
Yeah.
That's just in his nature, isn't he? Bellamy don't want to lose. No player or coach wants to lose. Do you know what I mean?
I'm also like a believer. I've said for a while now, like Ethan Ampadu is future Wales captain. Him and Jordan James will be our 100%. Central midfield for a very long time, you know, going forward. But I think Ampadu is such a big miss because he's like the all-round CDM. He's exceptionally aggressive. He's good on the tackle. He reads the game well, but he can pass. He can break lines with his passing. So many CDMs can win the ball back and can read the game well, but then when they get the ball, they aren't great with it. So if they're not giving like a 2-yard pass to the side, they get a bit lost and they give it away. It's a very specialist position. And that's why I always used to get frustrated under Robert Page that he would play a centre-back because I felt like, no, we need his aggression in the
wasted.
Shout out to Chris Gunter, who's managing the under-18s at Wales level for his getting the win. And the other guy who I could remember is Freddie Isaacson, who plays for Plymouth. He's the guy who assisted Biancheri's goal. And he was the youngest ever player to play for Plymouth when he played against Newport at the age of 15.
Wow. Jesus Christ.
I know, like, again, Martin said there, he said Charlie Crew will challenge both of them.
He will.
I'd be lying if I haven't seen as much of Charlie Crew as I've seen of like Charlie Savage or some of the other youngsters. However, people who I trust tell me that he is going to be top level, same as Ampadu. So, I got no reason to doubt those people. They know what they're talking about. Martin knows what he's talking about, So it'll be we're gonna if these young Welsh footballers fulfill even a little bit of what their potential is, Wales in 10 years' time could be very, very exciting team and strong to watch. Because
100%.
Nico Williams has got 50 plus caps, and he's 23, mate. Probably got another 3. He's probably got 10 years at fullback and another 3 as part of 3 at the back,
left centre back. yeah.
He could end up beating.
Ampadu's the one though, isn't he? Surely it'd be Ampadu, wouldn't it? How many has he got? He's got a stupid amount for his age because he's
both of them.
He's a year. I reckon he's a year above Nico. Ampadu's
24.
Okay, yeah.
So 54 caps. Jesus Christ. 54 caps, Nico, and then Nico Williams is what? Is he 23 or 24?
Probably got about. Nico's got 41 caps and he's 23. Yeah.
Yeah, so really, they're about
close.
About the same, isn't it? Really, he give or take that extra year. But 100%. If they can stay fit and stay clear of those serious injuries that slow players down, and look at I've said so many times. Aaron Ramsey, for me, if he doesn't have that serious leg break, goes on to be one of the top 5 midfielders in Europe. And sometimes people will, it's usually anti-Cardiff fans or whatever. They'll say, "Oh no, you're talking crap. He would never have been that good." He just was. He was at that level. There was a reason why the biggest clubs in the world wanted him, and unfortunately, he got a serious leg break, which just curtailed it, because ever since then, he's just always picked up hamstring, calves, all these just niggly injuries that keep you out 6 weeks, 8 weeks at a time. And it just derails your season every time. And he's never been able to get that momentum up of 2-3 seasons in a row at the top level. But then you look at the clubs he's played for, mate. Some of the biggest clubs in the world historically. So,
been there and done it, haven't he? There's you can't doubt it.
And I think he's got the mind, by the way, to go and be Welsh manager in, after Bellamys, and he's got 100%. That sort of mind towards it. But I think he's still got something to offer, mate, at club and international level. It's just unfortunate that injury, slowed things down. Brennan Johnson's another one, mind. How many caps? I know he hasn't got as many as the other as Ampadu and Nico Williams, but Brennan Johnson's only 23. And he must have a fair few caps.
He's got 41 as well.
Wow. 41? No, it's apparently 31, isn't it?
That feels... I don't know. SofaScore's got 41.
Yeah, it's. I'd go with
41 and 4 goals, but I don't know how true it is.
Well, SofaScore is pretty good, isn't it?
To be fair.
I just looked at the transfer market, which is not very reliable. It'd be interesting, mate. Just very briefly before we finish, Iceland will go much more 4-3-3 in that, won't we? Or will we see a traditional 4-4-2? Or a 4-4-1-1, maybe.
Potentially, yeah. I think it all depends. I think it all depends on how Saturday goes and minutes played. And you know what Bellamy's like; he's big into his data, so he won't want to overload players and have them, overdo it for their clubs. Players like Wilson are going to play 290 minutes if they can, because he don't play for Fulham anyway. So he has to give him 290 basically. Otherwise, it just makes it, it don't make sense him coming away. Whereas with players who are playing 90 minutes every week,
he's the most key
right. Yeah, but if he was playing every game for Fulham 90 minutes, I bet you Bellamy would be under pressure to not play him as much as. Do you know what I mean? As much as they.
When I spoke to him, he said exactly that. He'd protect players from overloading
exactly.
themselves.
So Brennan plays every game for Tottenham right now. I guarantee you he doesn't play 290 minutes. I'd be very shocked if he did.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with that, mate. Like, it just makes a lot of sense, doesn't it, at the end of the day?
Yeah.
The Iceland game, look, no game is easy. We obviously drew with them after being 2-0 up. We should have won that game. It's one of those things, isn't it? The way it happened. And maybe some of those young players have been brought in with one eye on the Iceland game, where you're at home and you can just unleash them. You can unleash your Colwells and your Kumases and your Charlie Crew, and you could say, do you know what? Go just enjoy your debut for Wales, sort of thing, in Charlie Crew's case
100%.
or whatever. But if we get a point at Turkey, we're banging there for the sort of promotion at the Nations League. So they are glorified friendlies, but if you win the group and you get promoted, you next time the qualifications come around, you get a better seeding and you get better opponents.
Okay.
So it's worth it from that point of view, because for years we just used to get stitched up, didn't we, in the groups for qualification? You'd be like the fourth best team or whatever, and then we finally got to the Euros. We finally got a decent group, and we just fell apart. So that's the most Welsh thing ever, wasn't it?
I know. No, yeah, I don't think Iceland. Well, we know it won't be an easy game, don't we? We saw they gave us our day at the office away. We just got to make sure if we do get a lead, we've got to keep it. Obviously, that's the big takeaway I think from playing them away, is that they'll come with electric sort of players that come off the bench and do a little bit that could scare us. We've got to win that. Have a lead, and we've got to keep it. Otherwise, they'll steal it off us, which is the aim of the game, I guess, for a team that is not winning a game of football. But 2 tough games, mate. We've got really 2 tough games ahead of us, big time.
Yeah, and I think, being honest, I back us now even more than I used to win our home games. And again, I think pace will be the key.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe he's more likely to trust those younger players at home in the second half to sort of keep the energy levels and sustain what he likes in terms of the energy and work rate in the second half. It's a big shame that Owen Beck is injured, because I think he might have started and have him and Nico as your wing backs. That, but you've got a lot of pace and energy then. But you've also got just defensive, and he's exceptional.
Mate, listen to this, by the way. I just realised.
Go on.
Let me just give you this little stat, which is not looking good for us, really, in some ways, maybe for Tuesday.
We've only scored. See if I can guess. Haven't we not beaten Turkey away for something like 25 years or something ridiculous?
On that. Probably that my stat here is a very not simple one, but it's just it's nothing to do with the actual Turkey game. It's more of what we've done, in the last 4 games. We've only scored one goal at home side.
Wow.
And 4 away.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Isn't that a bit mad, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, but we should have beat Montenegro by more than 1 goal. I know we didn't, but the fact was, we didn't, and we probably should have. Okay, the Turkey game again, we had a couple of big chances. I don't know, I'm just a bit worried that, I know we're at home in that second game to Iceland, and on paper we should win it, but man, judging off our last 4 games, we ain't scoring that many goals, mate, away, at home, sorry.
I think it's because we're set up more as a counter-attacking team, and I think at the home games we have to try to be more attacking setup wise, and I think in a lot of ways the way we play suits that sort of transitional counter-attacking football. And part of that, you see that a lot when a new manager comes in, where they're trying to implement their style and get everyone to understand what they expect and the systems and this, that and the other, and then you see those teams sort of play on the break and on the transition more than the break, I suppose. I'm trying to find that stat that I had, but I can't find it at the moment. I'm just looking at the FB ref. Historically, Wales v Turkey, we've only beaten them once, but that's not right, because we beat them recently, and we beat them did we beat them in the Euros not long ago? Or did we draw in the Euros to go through, maybe?
I'm not sure.
I'm sure we beat them. Just looking at the head-to-head now. 2024. It was 0-0. All right, so we didn't beat them recently, did we? It was 0-0 at home.
No, yeah.
It just felt like a win because the performance was so good. So that makes sense. So we've only actually beaten Turkey once, which was at the Euros in the group stage when we beat them 2-0. So our record against Turkey, the history is against us. And away from home is even more. Like the last time we played Turkey away, we lost 2-0 in 2019. Before that, obviously in the Euros we beat them. Before that, they beat us 6-4. Don't remember that game. That was back in 1997. So I was only 12.
A whippersnapper.
Yeah, I was a little nipper then. Historically, the stats are not in our favour, but I think as Welsh fans, I'm yet to meet anyone who's against or doesn't think Craig Bellamy is the man to take Wales forward, and that is positive because I think universally all managers at all levels and clubs and nations, it's very rare that everybody is on board with a manager. There's usually, a small percentage sometimes or a big percentage who think, at no point, for instance, was everyone on board with Robert Page. They weren't. They wanted him to do well and they wanted him to win, but I don't think everyone thought he was the guy. But it feels like everybody thinks Craig Bellamy is the man to take this Welsh team forward. So that in itself is exciting because it feels united, Maybe Chris Coleman probably was the last one where once he got going.
Yeah, good point. Speed, maybe.
Say again, sorry?
Speed as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Speed and Coleman then once he got going. And in fairness, I think people have done a bit of revisionist history on Giggs for obvious reasons. But I think that period where he got rid of Hal Robson, Carnews and those sort of older players and brought in the real young players, once that started to kick in, I think he doesn't get the credit he deserves because of things away from football and because he used to dodge friendlies. People hold on to that. But I think overall, he did a pretty good job as a Wales manager. He qualified, mate, and it's just Robert Page ended up taking us to the... And don't get me wrong, mate, at the end of the day, everyone knows I'm very, very much Team Rhodri, but say it, and Rhodri does it himself whenever it comes up about Ryan and talks about it, he will talk about it as honestly as possible, and he will say as an example, he's played the most Premier League games out of anyone ever. Probably one of the greatest Premier League players who's ever played, but he's not in the Hall of Fame. It's politics for whatever reason, and it can be whatever reason you want. There's several away from football why people don't like him.
100%.
I'm not sticking up for him in that sense. I'm just saying, if you're just going on football, he is one of the greatest Premier League.
If just on merit, he's in it. Yeah. But unfortunately, football is. Oh yeah, he did. No, I agree. I massively agree.
And he brought in the young players like Nico Williams and Ampadu, who we're now seeing the benefits of because they've got 50 caps. So, it is what it is, mate. Anyway, that's enough positivity for me. Give us a prediction then, mate. First of all, Turkey.
I'm going to say 1-1, mate. I'm going to say we're going to take the lead relatively early in the first half, 30th minute, whatever, 25th minute. I think we end up sort of buckling second half and going 1-0, which is still a massive. I think I would bite your hand off for it. But ultimately, if we do go 1-0 up, I'd love to see us see it out. But I don't think we've got it in us yet. I've yet to see it, similar to what Martin said. And then, I'm going 1-0 at home to Iceland. I'm just going to follow the trends of what I've seen so far. I don't see us scoring a ton, maybe 2-0, but I'm going to just stick with 1-0 and 1-0, mate. What about you?
I think, I think a draw away to Turkey. Although I've got a feeling, I've just got a sneaky feeling that we might sneak a 1-0 against Turkey. but that's based on, it's nothing but optimism. And I just got a feeling just from what I've seen from Craig Bellamy, I've been so impressed with him tactically that I almost just think he'll have a plan similar to the first game. And then it's just if we can take the chances, because, if we'd taken our chances against Turkey in the first game, whilst I do agree with you that it'll be a different Turkey side and a different atmosphere, we could have taken out, if Ramsey's had 2 good chances, if he takes one of them, we win the game. So I'm going to, I'm Welsh. I'm allowed to be biased. I'm going to go with 1-0 Wales. I have just got a feeling.
I like it. I love it.
Iceland, we're going to lose 3-0. No, it's just we're going to. No, I think we should get a result against Iceland. I'll go 2-1. But here's a question to finish then. Well, it's like a multifaceted question. Do you think we do these players get any minutes across the 2 games? Lewis Kumas, Ruben Colwell, Charlie Savage, Charlie Crew.
I'd be disappointed if Lewis Kumas didn't, going off him only having that little cameo against Montenegro. So yeah, I say number 1 does. Colwell, oh my God. Thing is, if Colwell gets minutes, then somehow there's no way Mark Harris don't get minutes, does he? In the second game, let's say at least. It's tough. I'd love to say all 4, mate, to be honest, but I'm gonna say they capped Charlie Crew, even though he got that game against the friendly, and maybe he did get capped, did he, in that Gibraltar game? Technically, I don't know, because he did play in that, didn't he, again under Page?
Yeah,
but yeah, maybe. I think 3 out of 4. I couldn't pick the 3, but I'm going to say 3 out of 4. 75%.
Nice.
What about you? What you reckon?
I don't think any of them play, to be honest.
You don't reckon none get minutes?
No, I think Charlie Crew or Savage will get some minutes, because I just think we're a bit short in the midfield. So I think there'll be a point where we have to utilise them over the 2 games. I expect to see Joe Allen in the first game for that experience at some point in the midfield. The second game, I could see, a Charlie Crew or a Charlie Savage coming on. If I'm honest, I don't think we see Colwell unless there's injuries or something that maybe forces it a little bit. Kumas, I'm with you. I want to see him, and I was disappointed we didn't see him in the last sort of rounds. Because I think he can do what we said Daniel James can do off the bench. He could be that impact sub. It was just a bit direct. And it does feel a bit mean that we kind of capped him, and then it feels like we just capped him for the just to make sure he didn't go and play for England or somewhere else.
Right, yeah.
But he's young, and his time will come. I have no doubt about that, mate. Excuse me, sorry. Me and you will be back next Thursday to talk about both the games. Obviously, we're going to do our Christmas special on Monday, but the people won't see that until around Christmas. Probably New Year's Day, actually, I think is the plan. But just
class.
Sometime around there it'll be out. So we'll have a Christmas special. Yeah. But me and Harry will be back next week to talk about the games in detail. All the podcasts are available in your, wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, everywhere. Just if you search the Cardiff City World feed, they're on there. There's a whole host of other content and interviews and podcasts on there as well. I will be back tomorrow with my Wales versus Turkey tactical preview, where we'll get a good look at both sides. I might actually ask Harry for a bit of his input on the Turkish side of things, because he was a bit more clued up than me in terms of how they'll set up. But so there's that. That'll be out tomorrow at 8:00. Saturday we'll have a match reaction show of some sort Saturday night, and then Sunday I'll be back for the breakdown where we look at it from a stats point of view and a bit more of a tactical insight. And there's content every day, every day. And if you want to talk more football, tomorrow night at 7, me and Rhodri Giggs will be there for Gigs on Football, where we talk all things, sort of all the big stories of the week. So I think we're going to be talking a little bit about the Wales game. We'll talk about Ruben Amorim coming in at United. We'll talk about the Manchester City legal case with all those clubs already putting their compo claims in, which was quite interesting. Diego Forlan made his professional tennis debut. We'll talk about that as well. So yeah, it's just basically it's like about 55 minutes, and we just shoot from story to story, talk about a bit of everything. So join us. That's on Podcast Nation, not Cardiff City World. We've got a whole host of stuff. We've also got a game show coming out next week as well, called The Question of Cardiff City, which is like a question of sport, better.
Sounds class.
Pleasure, mate, as always.
Love getting back with you, and we'll do it again on Monday and then Thursday.
Can't wait, mate. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in. Good 130 odd people watching and live, and I'm sure there's others will tune in after as well. So appreciate you all. Make sure you check us out tomorrow. We'll see you soon, or we'll see you next Thursday. I'll see you tomorrow in a bit.